when I started to make the argument that he could be out of office, but not out of power. And people are like, no, that can't happen. But it can. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And in fact, the more he's found to be engaging in illegal activities, all that stuff, the more it increases his core fan base, because his core fan base is all about challenging the authority, or rather even the centralized authority of government. In a sense, he kind of is he's the personification right now of decentralization, of pushing power back to the local level, to individuals. And so it's a bigger gripe about, where does power reside? And it comes back again to that mobile phone analogy, because that has dispersed power to such an extent. And Washington is perceived by a lot of the country to be wielding power not well, or in a manner that's not in keeping with everybody's best interest. There are those who feel Washington is just downright corrupt, and there's a case to be made for that. You can make that case. Others who just take an old-fashioned conservative view that they just want, government to stop at your door and leave you alone. Anyway, the point is, it's the ideology rather than the person that's really at issue. And I think that that's a bigger argument in the United States. And there'll be different people who personify that argument, but the fact is, it's the argument that needs to be had and resolved. And we just have to get through that and figure out reconciliation on that basis.
So where do you think that leaves us coming into the next election cycle?
So let me step back a little bit. I think what we're seeing in the US right now is a very positive change in, again, the distribution of power in the country. So, and it's for many reasons, and it was prior to COVID, but I think COVID's accelerated it. So we're seeing tertiary cities become very, very important. Big sources of economic activity, much greater sources of power. And I'm thinking of places like Austin, Nashville, Santa Fe, Chicago. It's no longer just California and the East Coast that dominate the core of decision-making for the country. And I actually think that's a healthy thing. And we're seeing tremendous competitiveness in the United States, which again is strange because everyone's like, no, the US lost its competitiveness. And I'm like, well, actually it got it back, because China now isn't competitive anymore the way it was. And in fact, the US, if you want to do manufacturing, if you want to do innovation, really the US is the epicenter of all that. I personally think Austin is the global center of innovation and creation in the world economy today, for a whole bunch of reasons. So that's changing the demographics of the country, right? So the country's becoming more purple. It used to be either red or blue. It's actually becoming more purple, right? Texas is becoming a purple state, right? You got all these Californians and New Yorkers fleeing the coastline, partly because regulation became onerous, taxes became onerous, like a whole bunch of reasons. But then they bring their values with them. So it's kind of the Texans are upset because they got all these California people coming in, creating a more liberal environment. But fundamentally, it's a mixing up of values and attitudes and experiences that actually tends to make the country successful. So I kind of think the country is becoming more purple, even though it feels like the red and the blue are still punching at each other. And so it may resolve itself through this reintegration. And by the way, that's not only in terms of geography, it's also in terms of race and immigration. And I think as well, the huge and powerful and important arguments that are being had about civil rights and societal integration of various ethnic communities, this is a thing that should have been resolved decades ago. it's about time that that got sorted out in a way that everybody can get on with their lives. So we could argue about what's the right method to get to the solution, but you can't argue about whether that argument needs to be had.